I think a lot of people are confused exactly what is hypnotherapy or hypnosis. So if you could just begin with what is hypnosis and 2 or 3 ways people can do a self-hypnosis to heal themselves.
So hypnosis it's an altered state. And in hypnotherapy, we're using that altered state to get the kind of results we want, the kind of changes that people want. We usually think of hypnosis as a trance state, and we go in and out of trance all the time without noticing it or thinking about it. So for instance, when you're deep into a book and maybe somebody comes up to you and you don't even notice them, you're experiencing the descriptions in the book. You're involved with the plot, say with the characters. You might be emotionally involved, and you're shutting everything else out. That's a trance. We even use the word, we talk about an entrancing novel or a hypnotic state, right? Or say when you're watching a movie and you're really into the movie, you put yourself in a very suggestible state, right? So if they want you to jump, you jump. They want you to feel sad, you might want to cry. Why? You're an adult. You know it's not real, but you put yourself in that state so that you can enjoy the movie, right? Those are two examples. But even like in the movie, you're always aware that you're sitting there watching a movie. I mean, if they start shooting in the movie, do you hit the floor? Do you?
No.
Probably not, unless you got really bad PTSD.
Yeah.
If the dinosaur comes on screen, do you run out of the theater screaming, believing you're
No.
about to get eaten? No.
No, no, no.
Some people scream. And in hypnosis, in a deeper state of trance, you're always aware on some level that you're sitting there in an altered hypnotic state. And if there's ever anything that doesn't suit you, either you'll just ignore it or you'll come out of hypnosis completely. We say, I hypnotize you, but I don't do anything to you. You're doing it. I guide you, I instruct you, I help you access that altered state that's part of your mental equipment.
There's a lot of like talk and misconceptions about hypnotherapy that it's a pseudoscience and the results are not consistent. When you are doing a session with someone, how many sessions do you recommend for a person? I'm sure it depends upon the intensity of the problem that they're dealing with.
Exactly.
But do you start seeing results in the first session?
Usually, yes. Yes. The first session, I'll teach you self-hypnosis, and we'll go through what I call a power self exercise. You imagine, you visualize yourself exactly the way you want to be in every respect, inside and outside, mentally, physically, and spiritually,
Okay.
now and in the future. And then I have you, when you have that person just right, you step into them. I call that your power self. So you step in and you actually experience being that person for a little while. And people have wonderful experiences,
Okay.
sometimes profound. And yes, most people feel a shift after that first session and then more after subsequent sessions. How many sessions? Like you say, it depends on the intensity of the issue you're working on. But it's not like psychotherapy. People go to a psychotherapist like week after week, right? For months, sometimes years. And sometimes they get some results and sometimes they don't. Sometimes I wonder why they keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But with me, it's much faster. People experience the results they want in several sessions. For instance, I work with people who have trouble driving over bridges. You know the Bay Bridge here in Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's supposed to be the worst bridge in America.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people just have trouble. They can't do it. In fact, they have this service at the Bay Bridge. I think you have to pay for it. You can pull your car up and somebody will get in and drive you across the bridge.
So that's of course I'm assuming it's coming from a place of fear, right?
It's
Of
coming from
height.
a place of fear. I think it's somewhat perceptual. You're driving across the bridge, and some people just kind of mentally fall into that huge space, and yeah, that makes them afraid. But most people, in 2 or 3 sessions, I can get them over that. And I test. You can go on YouTube, and you can find videos actually of driving across the Bay Bridge, maybe even in a rainstorm. So after we're done, I'll have them watch those videos, and if that doesn't bother them, then they're probably going to be okay actually driving. I had this colleague, this was years ago, but he used to hire a biplane, one of those planes that trail a banner,
Mm-hmm.
and fly it over Ocean City, and it would say, "Trouble with the Bay Bridge, call me," and he had his number. So people would call him. He'd work with them, and then when they were done, he'd actually get in the car with them, and they'd drive him across the Bay Bridge and back. He became known as the Bridge Man. I can do a
Wow.
similar thing, but I don't actually get in your car and drive with you.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of work. But, let's start with the basics of hypnosis. If
Mhm.
you would give me 2 to 3 exercises that people can do for self-hypnosis to overcome maybe anxiety, depression, or just have like a more calm start to the day.
Can I demonstrate on you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, get comfortable and close your eyes and kind of defocus your mind so you're not thinking about anything in particular. And take yourself, Rishanka, inside and occupy all the space inside your body. Every place, every part, from the top of your head all the way down to your toes, all the way to your fingertips. That's right. Get that feeling, whatever it feels like. And holding on to this, get a sense of expansion, like you're a bubble expanding out into the universe in all directions. And now double that feeling. Intensify it, spread it, and double it again. Let it fill you. And now start saying to yourself in your mind, over and over, I live with a happy heart, a peaceful mind, and a playful spirit, over and over. I'll let you do that by yourself for just a few minutes, few moments. I live with a happy heart, peaceful mind, and a playful spirit, over and over. You can take yourself a little deeper, just go into it more intensely. Just invite it to happen and it will. And normally I would have a person do this for 2 or 3 minutes. And then when you're ready to come back, shout to yourself in your mind, I deserve to be happy, healthy, and successful. And whenever you're ready, bring yourself back, all the way back to everyday time, space, and awareness. And when you're ready, yeah, your eyes are already open. Good.
Thank
So
you.
tell me, share with us what that felt like.
That was definitely encouraging. Good start to the day. Felt more alive, I think,
So
and
I
motivated.
suggest to my clients that they do this at least 3 times a day, just 2 or 3 minutes at a time. And it really makes a change in
Mhm.
somebody's life.
This is similar to manifestation.
The manifestation, well, I suppose, but we're not manifesting anything outside of you at this
Mhm.
point. But you're manifesting something in yourself. Now, that was the short form. Usually I do it for longer in a first session.
Yeah.
And I have some people go very, very deep into
Mhm.
this altered state. And for most people, it feels wonderful. So that's one way to do it.
So, we did like the shorter form right now, and I didn't go that deep. But for clients who end up going very deep into the hypnotic state, how does it feel? Like, what is that feeling? Do you end up losing control over yourself? Because personally, if I were to get a session done, like a 90-minute session done, I would be a little scared and I would ask a family or a friend to come with me so that in case I do lose control, I have someone who I know is there to take care of me. So, are these myths that you lose control, or a person is constantly in control of their thoughts and they know what's happening in the
You never lose control. In
other?
a
Okay.
way, it's like control on a different level because in hypnosis or self hypnosis, you have control over things in your body that you don't have normally in a waking state. You can control pain, for instance. You can actually, with some guidance, you can control things like allergies or certainly anxiety. So in a way, you have more control. Like I said, you're always aware on some level that you're in an altered state. And if there's ever anything that doesn't suit you, you can come out of hypnosis whenever you want. You're not locked into it.
So you don't really get stuck in that state ever.
You
You
don't get
can
stuck.
come out.
If 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 the hypnotist were to, God forbid, die,
Yeah, then you're just
you
stuck.
would you would sit there for a few minutes and wonder why isn't he speaking, and then you'd come out of it. You know, there are all kinds of movies like that. I think
Mhm.
there was a Woody Allen movie where the hypnotist died and he was stuck in some sort of weird state.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but that is funny. I still want to understand. I don't think I'm getting it yet. What is hypnosis? Like, because from what I've heard, it is a complementary therapy to your actual medical, the medicines that you have, or what your psychiatrist or psychologist does with you. Can this be used individually without any other medical supplementation, or this is considered a complementary therapy? What is it?
Oh no, I don't. I'm I'm not a psychotherapist. I don't prescribe drugs or anything. So, sure, most of my clients, I don't know, they may be on some medication, but that's not really that important to me. It's a standalone thing. In fact, I also do pre-surgery hypnosis
Okay.
where uh, where I basically set you up to have a better experience in surgery. And people who do this, they have less bleeding, they have less pain, less swelling, they need less anesthesia, certainly less anxiety, and they heal faster. That's been shown. There have been studies.
Wow. So it's similar to CBT, I would say.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, no,
Yeah.
this is different. And the difference is CBT and most psychotherapy is works on the conscious level. Okay.
Mhm.
A therapist will say, well, you do this thing, you do this, you do this, you think these things, and that's going to change your behavior. I work mainly on the unconscious level, and hypnosis allows you to access that. Now, there are other ways to access it too, but meditation is one. I
Mhm.
consider meditation a form of self-hypnosis. There's such a thing as guided meditation,
Mhm.
right? That's hypnosis. It's an altered mental state. We have these available to us from the time we're born. They say that, pretend, but it's very real to them sometimes. That's an altered state. I would call
Mhm.
it. There are those who say children are always in hypnosis until until maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, I could see that. I have two children.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a long time now. What are some unusual things that you've encountered with your clients? Like a story that really stood out to you or an experience that really stood out to you?
So there was this woman, and this is in my blog. I think the title of the blog is "Stalked by Bird Callers."
Mhm.
And she believed that people were stalking her, people she couldn't see. They were hiding in the bushes or somewhere, even that they were threading a microphone down or a camera down her fan in her room, and they were making bird calls. And she believed that. So you might think, well, I'll just hypnotize her and tell her, no, no, they're not really, that's not really happening. But
Mhm.
that's not really the way I went about it. Uh, I didn't directly contradict her experience, but
Mhm.
I said, well, let's make it so that doesn't bother you. She said, oh,
Mhm.
that's a good idea. And we did. I mean, I think eventually she realized that they weren't real. But by
Mhm.
the end of our several sessions, she said, well, now I can sit out on my deck and just enjoy being there. And the bird calls don't bother me. So
Wow.
that was pretty intense, though. I worked with this boy, and I have a blog about that too, called "The Boy and the Bees." So this boy was like 5, about to turn 6. The summer before, he had been stung by a bee, and he was afraid to go out and play. So he came in. So I had him draw pictures. Of a kid that age, you don't really need to any kind of formal hypnosis. Like I say, they're already in hypnosis.
Mhm.
I had him draw a picture of himself before he got stung, and then draw a picture of himself after it was all over and he was safe. This is something we call the fast phobia cure that I
Okay.
do with adults, but in this case, I was using him drawing pictures. He spontaneously drew a picture of the bee in between the other 2 pictures, and the bee was the same size as he was. And then I told him in his mind, to make a cartoon going from one picture to the other, and then we ran the cartoon backwards. And so he was fine. I said at the end, well, what if there was a bee in here? And he's flying around. He said, oh, it wouldn't bother me. But then I made a mistake. After it was over, I went out to his mother was sitting outside waiting. And I said, I think he's going to be fine. But if you need to, you can bring him back. So this kid is standing there, right? What's he thinking? When I said that, he's thinking, oh, it might not work. And sure enough, when he went, this was kind of a hypnosis, a negative hypnosis.
Yeah.
So when he went back home, sure enough, the phobia came back.
Mhm.
So she brought him in again. This time we did some other things. I did a little regression. I don't usually do regression, but we did. I had him imagine we had a time machine. He didn't know what that was, so I explained it. Had him describe it. It was big, it was red, it'll hold 100 people, have stickers on it. And we went back and I said, what could you say to that little boy? And he said, oh, I'll tell him it's going to be all right. I had him bring his toy tiger with him. And I said, how can the tiger help? He said, oh, he'll bite the bee and he'll kick it. And I said, what if the tiger gets stung? He said, It won't hurt him. It won't bother him much. And that was it.
Mhm.
So then after this, and this is important with a phobia, I mentioned the driving across the bridge, the videos. We went out, it was spring. His mother and I, we found a bush. There were bees flying around it. And he was fine. In fact, he was even kind of curious. So end of story.
This reminds me of a story about, it's very close to my heart. It's one of the sweetest stories I've heard about my husband from his mother. He had chicken pox when he was little, and he was a very good, obedient boy. So his mom kind of told him that you have the no itch chicken pox, meaning like this kind of chicken pox, you don't need to itch yourself. So she kind of,
Yeah, she hypnotized him.
she did. Then that guy he didn't itch himself, hence he had no marks on his body. And, when she was telling me this story, I was just amazed that something like chicken pox, you're so uncomfortable with itching your body. If you can just say something that's simple to a child and that you have the no itch, like it actually works and the child does not itch themselves.
So have you ever heard about buying warts?
No, no.
So I think Irish priests used to do this. A person would have warts,
Okay.
and the priest would come into their house and say, well, I'm going to buy your warts. And he'd give them some money,
Oh, wow.
and the warts would disappear. That's a form of hypnosis, and it worked. I've never tried it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing that the mind has so much power and control over our body, like our entire body, and it's amazing. So, you talked about some of your unusual experiences with your clients. What are some misconceptions people have about hypnosis?
Well, one is, I think, and about hypnotherapy, people expect a direct suggestion hypnosis. And by that, I mean, you hypnotize somebody, give them some suggestions, oh, you're not afraid of cats anymore. And then you bring them out and boom, it works. Sometimes that works. I do some of that. But there are other things that I think work on a deeper level that are not direct suggestion. So one is parts work. Now, I think a lot of psychotherapists use this. A lot of them use something called internal family systems, which is due to Richard Schwartz. But I use another form called core transformation, which is due to Connie Ray Andreas. And in core transformation, you start with a part. Oh, the part of you that wants to smoke or drink, the part of you that's afraid to cross bridges, to drive across bridges. And then we ask the part. I say invite the part into your awareness, and that's already a form of like hypnosis. Invite
Mhm.
the part into your awareness and ask the part, what do you want? Well, I want to be safe. So then we say, let the part step into safety and
Mhm.
ask it, when you are safe, then what do you want? Through being safe, it's even deeper. You keep iterating that, and
Mhm.
you get eventually, not sometimes fairly quickly, to what we call a core state. And it's an existential, spiritual state of being, such as peace, oneness, wholeness, love. And then you use that core state to transform the part and the person. It's very powerful, but it's not direct suggestion. Another thing I use is called wholeness work. You're angry, right? So, okay, where do you feel it? It's in my chest. How big is it? About like this. What's the quality of it? It's hot. And then I ask, where is the I? Where's the perceiving? You could say, I am aware of this hot feeling in my chest. Where's the I that's aware of that? And this sounds odd, but we invite that I, oh, the I is in the back of my head. We invite the I to just integrate with this vast field of awareness that's all around, to merge with it. There's a little more to it. It's all somatic. It's all in terms of bodily sensations. We come back now, go back to that situation where that person was doing what they were doing. What's it like now? Oh, that doesn't bother me anymore. It's a powerful way of changing reactions, and we can disarm triggers, shame, a lot of ways to use this. And again, it's not direct suggestion. It's not like I'm hypnotizing you and saying, oh, you're no longer angry at that person. That probably wouldn't work. But when we go about it this way, it does. And it's
So,
very, very powerful.
you gave me a few examples about treating anger, and similar stuff. Like, what are the misconceptions? Like, for example, if a person walks into your office and has some doubts about the therapy, what are those questions that those people have? Like, what are the misconceptions? I know that Losing control is one of them. Like, I thought that you lose full control when you're under hypnosis, and you just confirmed that that's actually not true.
Right.
What are some other misconceptions?
I think a lot of people just wonder, is this going to work for me? Can I be
Mhm.
hypnotized? And so there's several ways that I like. One is often I start a session with pain control. I'll ask the person, you have any pain? And the person might say yes. Where does it hurt? Oh, my shoulder hurts. Now, I'll caution them. I don't want you to use this to cover up, to mask something that needs medical attention. That's very important. But then I can take you through a very short procedure that will, for most people, relieve the pain in their shoulder. And then I'll say, well, what was this hypnosis? Because it's really kind of waking hypnosis. And say, I don't know. And say, yeah, that was hypnosis. So now we've started out, they've already experienced hypnosis. Another way, so yesterday, actually, I was working with this couple on smoking cessation, well, vaping, actually. So I did the zone like what I did with you, but then I do this procedure to really deepen the state. So you go deeper and deeper. At a certain point, I said, now I want you to imagine what it would be like if your legs got really, really heavy. And I elaborate that, like they were filling with wet cement, like they were made of lead. And what would happen if, when you try to lift those legs, they just get heavier? And I could see the woman in particular, she was smiling because she was trying to lift her legs and she couldn't. And she thought that was, that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
And then I said, now, let those legs return to normal so you could lift them easily if you wanted to. And then we went on. That's a convincer. Nobody, after that, nobody could say, I wasn't hypnotized. And when you're working with a smoker, that's really important, because what if they later say, reflect back on it and say, oh, was I really hypnotized? Did this really work? But now they've had this experience where they couldn't lift their legs. So they think, yeah, I guess I was hypnotized. And that affects the efficacy of what I do, the smoking cessation. It makes it more effective.
You've mentioned smoking to me twice, and which just brought up this question in my head. Smoking, alcohol, or similar substances, they have a bad reputation for, let's just not say bad reputation, but they are hard to fix, these habits, right? And in the past, people have tried many different things and they've not had a good success rate. For example, someone comes to you for smoking vape or normal cigarettes, you help them heal and they overcome that habit. What happens when they stop coming to you? Because this is a habit that is easily to come back and you have a relapse, especially
So
with
I
alcohol.
used to call people a year later. I do 3 sessions with smokers. Some people just do 1. I find that 3 makes it
Mhm.
more effective. I used to call people a year later, and I found that 75 to 80% of them were still smoke-free. So that's pretty good. I always say people stop smoking all the time, but I make it easier.
Do you give them tips on like what to do after, how to control yourself?
Yeah. So after the first session, most of my smoking clients are not smoking,
Mhm.
but some of them will have cravings for, usually a few days, maybe up to a week or so. First of all, I'll catch them after 4 days. We do a second session, but I give them some, I call them mind tricks or first aid. Like if you should have a craving, there's several things I tell them. One is tapping, and I don't know, perhaps you or some of your audience has experienced tapping or
That
EFT, emotional freedom technique.
so tapping is also suggested for ADHD anxiety, actually.
Yeah, a lot of psychotherapists use it, a lot of hypnotists. I just use it for smoking, but I
Mhm.
show you a tapping procedure that will help you take away a craving. Another
Okay.
is called heart breathing, where you imagine, pretend that you're breathing through your heart. You do that for about 90 seconds. And the other I actually do in hypnosis. It's called a one breath trigger. Or in hypnosis, I show you I have you take a deep breath in, you hold it for a second, and as you release, you squeeze your thumb and forefinger. And the suggestion is you will feel an immense, powerful wave of relaxation, and any craving will vanish.
Just to
It's
summarize,
small. I'm sorry, go ahead.
a person gets a craving for going back to smoking. The three methods, or one of the few of the methods that you recommend, are: one is tapping your face when the craving arises, the other one is deep breathing, and while you're exhaling, you kind of press your forefinger and your thumb.
Heart breathing, and then the one breath trigger where you take a deep breath in, hold it, release, squeeze. It's a post-hypnotic suggestion.
Okay.
And from people, they probably don't do all three, but
Mhm.
clients, they'll find one of those things that works for them. And
Okay.
that's what they'll do for a few days when they have a craving. And that it helps them get through it. And then we catch them in like usually 4 days. And then after that, we do one more session. So it's
Okay.
pretty thorough and it works pretty well. The other thing I tell smokers is, and this they have to figure out on their own, when you stop a habit like that, it's occupied a big part of your life, right? Same with drinking. You have to figure out what you're going to do instead. Like, what are you going to do at 9 o'clock when you're by yourself and you used to pour a drink? What are you going to do at that point? Are you going to read a book? Are you going to, watch a movie? What are you going to do? You have to figure that out. I can't do that for you. But yeah, my smoking cessation is very effective, and also with alcohol. I've worked with other substances. I've worked with cocaine and so forth.
So alcohol is considered, like alcoholism is considered an actual disease where you have a genetic problem.
I don't know.
So
I
I've
don't
done a
look at
few
it that way.
podcasts on this and with an alcoholic, and this is what I've understood, that it is a genetic problem. How do you fix that with hypnotherapy?
What I described earlier, core transformation, is one of the things I use. The part of you that wants to drink.
And I do want to come back to, on your website, you've talked about core transformation, NLP.
I consider it a different form of hypnosis
Okay.
where there may not be an induction. Like what I did with you is called an induction.
Hmm.
It comes from Mesmer, by the way. He thought he was magnetizing people and you were inducing a magnet, like magnetic induction, use the word.
What is the difference between NLP and core transformation?
NLP is, I consider it hypnosis. I mean, you're using altered states, even though there may be no formal induction. So I'll show you one hypnosis technique. Somebody has a feeling that they don't like. Maybe it's anger, anxiety. You say, where do you feel it? It's in my chest. I ask you, how is it moving? How's it spinning? And most people will say, oh, well, it's going like this or like this. I say, okay, bring it out of you. Start it spinning in the opposite direction and pull it back in. Now, can you get that feeling back? And most people cannot. That's an NLP technique. It's called the reverse spin.
What
Now,
is NLP? What is the full form for it?
neuro-linguistic programming. It was developed starting in the mid 70s by a couple people, a couple graduate students, I think, at Santa Cruz. And then it's developed a lot since. Core transformation is a form of NLP, and so is wholeness work. But it's developed way beyond the original work.
But is there research done, or is there any scientific evidence that these actually work?
There is some research. There is some. I can't cite you, but yes,
Mhm.
there has been research. Core transformation, there's been some research. What I mentioned before, the fast phobia cure,
Mhm.
there's been research on that. It's used for trauma. For the original traumatic events, we can use the fast phobia cure and basically disarm them, disarm the emotional content of them.
Sigmund Freud has completely abandoned hypnosis. He thinks that the results are inconsistent, it doesn't really work. You as a professional in this industry, what do you feel about that?
There were those that say that he abandoned hypnosis because he wasn't a very good hypnotist.
Probably,
I
I
don't
guess.
know. I don't know. He was trained by Benoit, a very famous hypnotist, and I guess he just went in other directions. But with hypnosis, with NLP, we're working on the unconscious level. I don't like to say subconscious as though it were a separate entity, but we're working on the unconscious level. And you can get better results, more results, faster, deeper than if you only work on the conscious level. And most psychotherapy, including CBT, is on the conscious level.
Okay. So, just to end things, I want to ask you something. So, for example, you're working with a client who has a lot of trauma and anxiety and maybe past life issues. And during the session, a lot of that comes out. And the situation somehow becomes uncontrollable, where an actual psychotherapist or a psychologist is needed there to control, or like a mental health professional. How do you handle those situations? Does that ever happen?
It doesn't. The way I work, it just doesn't happen. First of all, I mentioned it with the boy and the bees, but generally I don't do what they call regression to cause, where I would have you go back to the first time you experienced that and re-experience it. I don't do that. So that possibility that somebody's going to freak out, re-experiencing an old trauma, that just doesn't happen because I don't work that way. Now, some hypnotherapists do, and they have various ways of doing it. They would have you, before they start, think of a safe place and then give you a trigger to go to that safe place. But I don't work that. I was trained that way, but I don't work that way.
Okay. Oh, that's probably smart way of doing it, I guess. You don't want to be in a situation where you can't control.
It's that. And also, you regress somebody and you still have to deal with the issue.
Right?
Yeah. People do remember.
Yes.
So this was a woman who came to me saying, I haven't slept in 20 years. And of course, she must have slept some. You can't live without sleeping. But we worked with it. We did several sessions. We did core transformation. We probably did wholeness. And by the third or fourth session, she was sleeping better. She comes into my office for the next session. She says, now I remember what happened. And she tells me this story about how 20 years ago she was about to be married. And basically on the altar, the guy stood her up. He left. She says, I went over to my girlfriend's house and I told myself, if I don't go to sleep, it won't be over. And then 20 years ago, she walks into my office and says, I haven't slept in 20 years. Now, I did not regress her. I did not say, go back to the original cause of this. It came up only after she had largely resolved the issue. And I guess it was safe in her, on the unconscious level, it was safe for her to remember it. But that's how it was kind of interesting. But sometimes people remember things, but only when it's safe for them to do it. We don't go digging things up. We're not doing archaeology.
Wow. So, Donna, what is one piece of advice to a person who's hesitant or even scared to try hypnosis?
I can help you. And they say some people can't be hypnotized. I have never run into anybody like that. People are responsive on different levels, but the way I work, you don't necessarily have to go into a deep, deep trance. The message is I can help. And in a relatively short amount of time, even people who've done years of therapy, we can resolve your issues in several, 3, 4, 5 sessions. And people are amazed.
Amazing. And Donna, where can people reach you? What's the best place to get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, www.hypnosis-silver-spring, hypnosis-silverspring.com. And at the top is a button to schedule a consultation. That's the best way. It's a free phone or Zoom consultation, about 30 minutes. And there we'll discuss your issues, what's going on with you, figure out how many sessions you might need, or especially to start with. And then we go ahead and schedule and go to work.
Awesome.
And people are amazed at how effective this is. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Donald. This was, very interesting to learn about hypnosis. I've always been curious about this subject. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. If you did enjoy this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share. I'll have all of Donald's details put in the description section below, and feel free to leave your comments below as well if you have any suggestions or recommendations for any other videos on healthcare, entrepreneurship, or anything in general. Thank you so much.